Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another FPL community Q&A. Just a week to go until less than a week now to go until the season starts. It is rapidly approaching at a pace that I don't feel I am at all ready for. So yeah, but we'll get into that in just a moment. If you guys don't follow me already, if you could go and do so, my Twitter page is on the screen for you all there. Just before we get into it, yeah, we've had to have a change of guest. None the worse at all, but we'll get into that in a minute. Just the usual sponsor stuff. The last few days you can get your 25% off your Fantasy Football Hub subscription. There is a link in the description, and a code which will give you 25% off. And it runs until the deadline on Saturday. So if you guys want to check them out, there's a link in there for you. Ross, the merch guy, anything you need for your sort of mini league prizes, he's very close to his Kickstarter targets. So if you guys want anything ahead of the Game Week 1 deadline, make sure to go and check him out. The links to all his stuff are in the description as well. Just one more thing before we get into it, the usual mini league update for you guys. The code and everything and all the description on it is on there. The code up on screen for you all to go and join, as well as the prizes for monthly, bi-monthly and overall winner. This code is not available on Twitter, it's just for you guys on YouTube. So there is the code if you guys want to go and join it. I'll share it at the end as well, and if you want to watch it on replay, it will be there as well. We do have quite a lot of people throughout who have joined, sort of a couple of pages of people already, which is really great to see. So make sure you're joining in that. But without further ado, introduce my guest and my Wolves correspondent for my new project this season, ExpressFPL. Good evening.
Evening, Harry. Good evening, all. Nice to be on. Late super sub.
Yeah, thank you very much for filling in. It was JNO's his child got taken to hospital, so it was quite a frantic last evening. But thank you for stepping in.
No problem. I think all Wolves fans will be horrified that I'm speaking to you ahead of watching Connor Cody on the TV. But I'll be keeping tabs on him as well, and hopefully he'll have a good game. Yeah,
fingers crossed. Keep us updated on that England game. I'm sure we've got a couple of their youngsters to talk about at some point during this stream. Phil Foden and Mason Greenwood in particular, who we can get onto in a minute, and their behaviour. Thanks, Cry. I just turned the volume up. So if I put your team up on screen now, do you wanna walk us through it and the any big selections that you've gone for in there?
Okay. Well, my team's on the screen, is it now, Harry?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think the big dilemma was I wanted Aubameyang in my team. He seems to be the form man at the moment, scoring in all the big games. He scored in the FA Cup final. He scored in the Charity Shield, and then Arsenal have got Fulham and West Ham to start the season. So he's heavily owned. I thought we need to get Aubameyang in at least for those two games, and perhaps he's changed his position. And I think the big dilemma for everybody is, do you get a Liverpool midfielder in alongside Aubameyang? I've got Mane at the moment ahead of Salah. Or do you take out the Liverpool midfielder, get Son in for 9 million, and then use the extra 3 million elsewhere? And I think that for a long time was the dilemma that I wrestled with, because I wanted Alexander-Arnold and Trent and Robbo, the Liverpool flying fullbacks, both in. But in the end, only after telling everybody that I was going without Salah and advocating the other strategy, in the end I've brought in Mane yesterday, and slightly weakened my defence, taken out Andy Robertson and split him with some with some other strong defenders. But I've got the two big guns in there at the moment, Mane and Aubameyang at the moment. Mane might still change to Salah. I think that's more of a toss of a coin, but I quite like Mane just because he seems to score just as many points as Salah, and it's always good to get one over the Salah owners as well if he pops up.
Yeah, it's interesting that you've gone with that Mane over Salah. It's something that I'm contemplating at the moment. I've gone with Aubameyang as well. St. Maximin.
I think there's less risk at the moment because Salah isn't as heavily owned. He's not going to be as heavily captained, and I had Mane for restart and felt comfortable that he's more than capable of scoring equally to Salah. He's the same price as Salah now, so he's not quite as attractive for that reason. But as I say, I do quite like it. He does also. He flies out the traps, doesn't he, Mane? He always scores at the start of the season, which I like as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if he scores the first goal of the season. Maybe Liverpool win 4-2 and Mane gets a brace, something like that, to kick us off. So that's the thinking in my midfield. And the other players that I definitely wanted to bring in were Trent.
Yeah.
I don't think you can risk going without him at the moment. He's too heavily owned, and also I want Tony Marshall in for the second game week. So he's my next most expensive player. Lots of people have got plans for Fernandes or other players, but I just think Marshall looked. I owned him at the end of last season, and he just looks razor sharp. So I think that it might get me ahead of the game to have him coming in off the bench for game week 2, and I'll be quite comfortable then. I'll have the two big midfielders, Mane and Aubameyang and Marshall, and I think they're going to form my they're my big hitters really at the moment.
Yeah,
I haven't really mentioned Werner. He's my only Chelsea asset. I think he's almost pretty more of a standard pick, really. I think he stands out as the best Chelsea pick.
Yeah,
he's going to play the most.
I think so.
There's going to be less.
We'll have a look, and I think there's some questions in the chat about certain picks in your team. As a Chelsea fan, I like Werner a lot. I just wish Pulisic was fit game week 1, as he would be the one that would be straight in for me out of the two of them. $1 million saved over Werner. I just find that really hard to ignore.
Yeah, that I mean, obviously, Pulisic would be the one, but unfortunately he's injured, because even his run before he got injured was just explosive, wasn't it? And probably caused his injury. And I had him towards the end of last season as well, so got fond memories of his cameo coming on at Liverpool and scoring me a few points off my bench. I benched him for that game, so hopefully he'll come back as soon as possible. But I think if you've got you can't really go wrong with Werner. Really, as Havertz is tempting, but then I've used my money on the big hitters in midfield already, so I'm very comfortable with having Werner alongside Martial at the moment.
Yeah. I'll have a look at my team now. I'll put that up on screen. I think Havertz, I've contemplated picking Havertz, but the only reason I'd have him would be a stepping stone until Pulisic is back fit. He's not someone that he's probably my third favourite out of those three long term, so I'd only be picking him short term until I could make the move to Pulisic, and I don't know quite when he's going to be back, so I don't want to risk having 5 weeks of having Havertz in over Werner when Werner does look like the much better option. So I've got my team up on screen now, which is quite different to how everyone would have seen it last time. I've done a lot of tinkering, done more tinkering I think in the past couple of days than I've done practically in the month since the game launched. I'd had a little bit of a look, but this past week it's been much more. I was very set on Greenwood, but after his antics, his behaviour, as well as still talk of Sancho coming in, I've moved him out and I've brought Martial in. Dele Alli is in my team, and I am very excited about what he could offer. And I'm sure in 3 weeks' time I'll probably be selling him again when he's done nothing. But I am excited about what he could offer me. And what else has changed? Che Adams is in there as the 6 million. I saw that you've got Mitrovic in. How have you thought about that sort of 6 million price bracket? I know Wilson came in at 6.5 for Newcastle today.
Yeah, well, I had big plans. My big plan was to have Chris Wood on the bench initially. For a long time, I was very keen on him. But then Burnley started talking about selling some players, and when I went up to Mane, in the end, without Burnley having a game, Wood was the sacrificial lamb, and he got dropped out at 6.5. That only left me with the 6 million market. I don't really like Che Adams. I've already got Southampton covered, I think, with Armstrong and McCarthy. I'm fairly sort of happy with that. And I just thought Mitrovic, I quite like the old talisman theory. You know, he's gonna lead Fulham. He's gonna play every game. They've got 2 nice fixtures, second and third. I think Leeds and maybe Villa. I can't think of it, but they've got a nice game where he could get in the points. But at the same time, if he doesn't fire that well, I feel like if I can bring in Bardsley. Yeah, so Mitrovic, I think, for me, stands out above Che Adams, Jordan Ayew, and who are the other popular 6.0 ones? I can't.
It's just 3 of them, I think. I'm looking at it. Yeah, Mitrovic. Yeah, that's probably it, unless Barnes is fit for Burnley. But again, they don't play game week 1.
I did think about downgrading to Rodriguez actually from Woods, trying to be a bit clever with that one. But in the end, I hadn't considered Mitrovic at all. But then when I only had 6 million to play with, he suddenly fitted the bill, and I feel again he looks like it might be ready to fire.
Yeah, and I think actually game week 1, Arsenal at home is the early kickoff as well. That's not a bad fixture. I know Arsenal have been better defensively, but you could easily see Mitrovic getting something from that game.
Yeah, definitely like 3-1 or something like that maybe to Arsenal. Mitrovic get a consolation, but I had Tierney as well initially because I wanted him in, but I've had to take him out as well to bring in Mane, and so that makes me even more confident that I can do without playing Mitrovic. So I'm not playing him against an Arsenal defender.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, definitely. So we have had a couple of drafts sent in from some of the viewers. I'll just have a quick sort of scan through, and there's a couple of sort of talking points that we've got. A big one is Everton, and I know some of the guys in the chat are talking about them. So they've signed James Rodriguez. They've just signed Doucouré this evening as well. There's talk of Tomori going there on loan from Chelsea as well. Do we think that they are going to look much better this season? Should the likes of, I suppose it's probably Dean, James Rodriguez and Calvert-Lewin are probably the 3 that you'd look at owning. Is it tempting you?
No, not at all. Actually, I did a tweet the other day to say that I think Everton look like they could be again sticky toffee puddings. Was my witty attempt, but actually I just think that in the Premier League these days, the good teams they're so settled and know how they're going to play, and Everton have had such teams that have a bad end to the season find it, even with new signings, tend to find it hard to pick up. So Rodriguez, James, he hasn't played consistently for a long time, and he's had a few bad years. I wonder, is he going to be able to pick it up and turn it on? I'm not so sure really.
I think what it seems like the key thing with Everton is they have a lot of players who have the ability to be really good, and they have a lot of players who are very good on their day, but they lack a lot of those consistent players. So we've got the likes of Richarlison, who's very good on his day. James Rodriguez, as you said, like at his best, he's very good, but you're not going to get it every week from him, which I suppose is going to be the worry, that we're not going to get it week in, week out, which makes it feel like a bit of a risk going into that game week 1 with any of their assets, although their fixtures aren't dreadful. So I think Calvert-Lewin potentially is an option, but I wouldn't be looking at anyone else really.
Yeah, well, I have seen a lot of interest in Calvert-Lewin, but he just hasn't made it onto my radar really because of the way I've set my team up already. And as I say, I don't really fancy Everton or particularly Calvert-Lewin. And he had a good spell, but then he didn't really come back after restart. I don't think he's particularly proved that he can do it over a full season yet. Anyway, but I'm sure if people who see him more regularly than me might tell me that. But he didn't seem to stand out in the Everton team. Last few games of the season.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's probably a wait and see on them. There probably will be times where we think their assets look really appealing. I imagine they'll go through a nice run of form at some time, but I don't. I think there's better, more consistent assets to go with game week 1.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just wait and see really, and it doesn't mean I wouldn't write them off, but I don't think you lose. I don't think you're going to steal ahead of anything by getting them in either. Really, that's what you're always trying to do, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. And I think on the topic of sort of hammers, people are asking, do we expect people who are signing now? So if we've got hammers, for example, I suppose Havertz was slightly before. Are we expecting these signings to be ready game week 1? Is James Rodriguez likely to be? I think we've heard that Havertz is going to be ready, and he's going to play, especially with Ziyech and Pulisic both being injured. They're going to have to play him. But with if we're getting signings this week like Doucouré and James Rodriguez, are they really going to be ready for the weekend?
Well, I suppose it depends on whether they've had played international duty and how. I mean, for example, I don't think Rodriguez is going to be fit and firing. He might be able to play, but he's going to be playing 60 minutes, and he's not particularly played.
No,
he's not had a full season last season and had a few weeks off, played deep into Europe like some of the Lyon players, for example. Wolves have just signed Markle, but he played. He only stopped playing a month ago, so he's going to be ready to go. You would think.
Yeah.
Whereas Rodriguez is going to be slightly different. Not sure about Doucouré, but I think they're going to take a little bit of time to get into their stride as in Everton's with their players and as a team too.
Yeah. I just pulled up another draft here that was sent in, and it's one of the players in it that I think is quite interesting is Harvey Barnes. So he comes in at 7 million, and it's generally this thing of Leicester is a team that really hasn't featured in many drafts. They have quite nice opening fixtures. I think Barnes and Maddison at 7 million are at a price that you could take a punt on them. I think Vardy at 10 is too much, and I'd rather go with Werner or Kane either side of him. But at Barnes at 7, I actually prefer Maddison at 7 if Maddison's going to be fit on set pieces. But Leicester, I find it hard because after their end of season form was so dreadful, their after lockdown form was so bad that no one wants to pick them as a result of that. But if we finish the season in game week 30 and we're picking our teams based on the form up to then what we'd have Barnes or Maddison in our team, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I like Barnes, and I had a lot of joy with Everton last year. I got up slightly ahead of the curve. I had Schmeichel, Maddison, and Vardy for quite at a certain point when they were really hit that role. So, and then I brought in Barnes later on in the season, and I like Barnes. I think he's going to be a really. I think he's a really good player, and I think he's going to have a good season actually. So he would be the one I'd be most tempted with if you're spreading your midfield money out around a bit. So you could have someone like him alongside Son, couldn't you? I think rather than if you were looking to. But it's quite difficult to get in if you have the big midfield pairing. Yeah,
it's then hard once you've got the big midfield pairing and you want maybe a premium forward. It's then quite a lot to stretch to Barnes. Although looking at my team, I've got Dele Alli in my team at the moment. That's a 1 million saved if I went with Maddison or Barnes over Dele Alli, which isn't something that I'd considered until just now, but it's probably something worth looking at.
I would be tempted on Maddison if he's fit, but he's not fit, I don't think. So, because I just think he's going to have a more consistent season than Dele Alli. Don't really like Dele Alli that much as an asset anymore. I mean, I didn't last season. He scored a couple of goals, and everyone thinks he's going to go on and become that kind of free scoring midfielder. Then he stops, he gets injured, he gets suspended. Whereas I think Maddison seems someone who's a bit like Grealish. He's going to play the whole season, and you're going to kind of get more investment out of him. That's how I see it. I don't really like the Alli as much as, he's a bit inconsistent for me.
Yeah,
but
Ali seems to be one of those Marmite players within the community at the moment, where half the community think he's great and I want him in my team over Son and over others, and then others are like, I just don't understand where this hype has come from, which I think is a reasonable assumption. But I've watched too much of that Spurs documentary, and he's been very good on that, so I've had him in. But I definitely think I need about half a million to free up in my team anyway to sort of get it to the draft that I want it to be. So actually looking at Dele Alli to Harvey Barnes or to Maddison could be the way I do that.
I think Ali, if you're looking for a bit more cash, Ali to Barnes would be tempting. That would give you $1 million. You might be able to cover Spurs. I'm actually going without covering Spurs at the moment. I don't think I've watched a bit of All or Nothing as well, and I don't think they just look like they're going to score that many goals. I don't think they don't quite look like they scraped into the top. Maybe I'm a bit bitter because they came past Wolves, but they're a bit kind of reliant on Kane's goals to drag them out of a hole, really, which isn't that good for their other assets, maybe. Yeah,
and they play an unbelievable amount of matches as well. So if you're going with Kane, then great, he's probably going to play all the Premier League games. But Ali particularly, he's probably not going to play every game, is he? When they've got other options. So yeah, an interesting.
Yeah, well, again, that's the reason Spurs were my sacrificial lamb, really, in some of my changes. And even Doherty in the end got the chop. So, but again, I don't think I'm missing out on too much. If I was going to go for Spurs, Son or Kane, really, that's where. But talking about Leicester, we were talking about Leicester, weren't we? The one I was interested in was Justin. I've had him in my team for quite a lot, actually, just for 2 games, just to see me until my subs can come on. But there's a little bit of a holder, but in the end I've rejigged him, but he may come back in, Justin. I quite like him.
I think the 4.5 defenders is really interesting at the moment. So I've got Ryan in goal at the moment, which is partly because I wanted to allow myself to have Walker-Peters and I didn't want to have a double up. An interesting one is I've gone with Taylor, and I think most of us are thinking that a Burnley defender is the best 4.5 defender at the moment. But apart from that, we've seen Jamal Lewis sign today for Newcastle, and if he's coming in at wing back for them and is, fingers crossed, going to be priced at 4.5, could Jamal Lewis be another good if he's playing wing back for them? What do you think about Jamal Lewis? That Newcastle defence wasn't good post lockdown, but we've seen it be good before.
I think I do like I like Newcastle under Bruce. Quite a stodgy team, hard to score many goals against. I don't think. Well, if he's 4.5, I'd be interested. One of my rules really is a team like Newcastle only have one of their players, so I quite like St. Maximin at the moment. So I probably wouldn't get 2 Newcastle players in, but but certainly if Lewis is 4.5, he's going to play every game, and he would be quite an attractive signing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm hoping that he does come in at 4.5 and is nailed on that wing back spot. The only question is he going to play game week 1 again? which you'd potentially think not having signed today, but I don't know who else. Well, in theory, they're going to play there, so it's an interesting one because game week 1, having those players on your bench, you can't be picking someone who's just signed and isn't going to play game week 1, which is then a bit of a worry.
Of course. Yeah.
So another team that I've got up on at the moment has 2 players that I'd like to get your thoughts on. The first one being, and someone who you had, I think, in your draft, is Egan, a Sheffield United defence, a defence that was very popular last season, but now they've all had their slight price rises. People seem to have fallen out of love for them. Do you expect second season syndrome from them, or do you think we'll get more solidity from them like we've had for most of last season?
I think they'll have another strong season, Sheffield United. They're quite an impressive team, I think.
Yeah, I can.
They're quite an impressive team. I think they had a bad game in after they came back from lockdown, but Wilder was able to shake them out of that, and they finished the season fairly strong. So I think probably their price rise is justified. I think they'll probably finish 8th or in the top 10 again. I think.
Be interesting to see. I think they definitely need to look at something going forward. They were linked with Brewster, but doesn't sound like he's going to be going there, although it sounds like he could be getting a loan somewhere, which would be good for a lot of our teams. But I just think they need a bit more going forward if they're going to get to where they were this season, because I just feel like people are going to understand those overlapping centre-backs that they've got. People are going to start to see through it, like we've seen. We had teams in the past where first season, okay, it's something new. The next season, it's not new anymore, so we have time to plan for what they're going to do. I think they'll be good defensively, but just if their lack of attacking threat means that their defence is put under more pressure, is my only worry with them.
I think Egan is fairly safe and a good. I think Egan is a good pick. He's always going to play. He seemed to develop a knack of scoring goals towards the end of last season, and he's cheaper than the wing backs. So perhaps Sheffield United might continue to struggle for goals. They haven't really signed a striker, but I think their defence is still going to be pretty mean, and they've got a good run of good 8, kind of their first 8 fixtures, or just seemed with the kind of games where you wouldn't mind playing your 5 million defender in, really. So I've kind of got Egan in as a bit of a mainstay. I'm not expecting him to set the world on fire, but I'm quite happy to have a Sheffield United player in my team because they look quite decent value to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think they are good value. I just think that seeing them at that 5 million was just a bit. It's not quite the 4.5 joy that we had from them last year, but I definitely think there is potential picks from them going forward. The other player in this draft is Callum Wilson. Someone's very quick to get him in as soon as he signed. Ryan Fraser signing as well, and I know you had, and I have, St Maximin in our current drafts. My thinking was that, okay, great, Fraser and Wilson are going to be great assets, but to me all this does is it's going to make St Maximin, who's the cheapest of the lot, a better asset at the moment. So I went for the cheapest of the lot because I think they'll all help each other out. I think Wilson could be a great shout up front, but
I agree. Harry, I'm just going to scramble around and get a charger. I know that doesn't look very
That's
good.
all right.
I'd rather that than disappear off altogether. I've moved
That's fine. Yeah, go for it. I will go solo for a minute. Yeah, I think having Wilson in is an interesting one. 6.5. Again, it's just a big question if he's ready game week 1. Andy Carroll's played a lot in pre-season, and a lot of the reason for picking those Newcastle assets is that West Ham fixture in game week 1. So if we're not thinking that Wilson and Fraser are going to be fit game week 1 just because they've only signed on, Tuesday, do we expect for them to be ready in game week 1? If they're not going to be, then do we not? Is it they're not nearly as appealing because that West Ham fixture is how you'd like them? Sean in the chat saying Ryan Fraser as a forced. Yeah, but that was 2 seasons ago. They then scored a combined 3 goals since October 2019 in the league, and they played 30-something appearances between them. So although he has shown a lot of form previously, the worry is that he's now getting slightly older. He's not quite got it as he had. So I think that having Wilson and Fraser in the Newcastle lineup will be better than what they've been going with. It'll be better than having Joe Linton and maybe Almiron out there. But I just think that we know what St. Maximin can do, which is why I want St. Maximin out of the three of them. I think he's probably the safest choice out of them. Although Wilson at 6.5 is very, very appealing. How well do I think Newcastle assets will do this season? That's an interesting one. I very much depends on how those new signings do. They tend to just sort of get in and around that sort of 14th, 15th. I expect them to be about there again next season. Maybe if they're going forward a lot more, then they may not be as great defensively. So again, I would say probably 14th or so for Newcastle. What do you think?
I agree. And just listening to you talk, actually, whilst I was fidgeting around, I'm back now. Sorry about that. I think they're a team I like Newcastle. I think they improved a lot after this bad start last season, and their players kind of remain quite cheap. Maximum at 5.5 million just seemed a bit of a gift, to be honest. I was almost certain he was going to go up to about 6 million, and I think that I think if you get one player in, Lascelles or Maximum in, then you can kind of keep an eye on how Wilson and Fraser do. And I agree. I think Wilson would be the one I would prefer. He's 6.5 million, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Wilson ahead of Wood. Something like, if you were thinking about getting Wood, now Wilson's signed, be tempted, that would give you another option, wouldn't it? It would mean he could start. Whereas Fraser, he doesn't really appeal to me as much as a bit like we were talking about Rodriguez at Everton. I don't really like a player when they have that bad season. You kind of wonder whether they're going to be able to just kind of pick it up and get going in the same way. But obviously, if he does, you can bring him in later on, and it wouldn't cause too much problems to your side.
Yeah, I agree. I think what we're saying is it's Sir Maximin if you want a cheaper midfielder, or it's Wilson as the forward option. It's not going to be Fraser. It's going to be one of the other two. But yeah, I'm just not sure Fraser's his attitude last season just said something about him that I didn't realise was a side of him, that I just worry what he could do if he doesn't play every game, or he's not completely playing how he wants to. You've seen the attitude from him that you just don't know how he's going to react. So
I didn't like the way that he left kind of before the end of the season. But then at the same time, I suppose playing devil's advocate with myself and that he was a player that was linked with Arsenal the season before, and so he's obviously got that potential to become a kind of a player on everyone's radar again. But yeah, he doesn't, for the same reasons, he doesn't really appeal to me at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. Just looking through a lot of these drafts. Sorry?
I was going to say, actually, I've been an advocate of other Newcastle players. Andy on Twitter, Jeff Hendrick is one for 5 million. I think he's not a bad little. But my that hasn't been greeted with great warmth by a few of my five. I reckon he might play every week for 5 million. And if you want your 5 million asset, but I can tell from your reaction you might not.
No, what it made me think was, how are they going to fit all of these players into their lineup now? Because if they continue to go with 5 at the back, which they may switch away from, if they're looking at Hendrick potentially can play through the middle, but they've got Wilson, Almiron, St. Maximin all wanting to play out wide now. They've definitely got more depth in this now.
I think they'll stick Wilson up front, then they'll play Almiron and St. Maximin, and then they'll play, 3 from Henrik, Shelby, and the long staffs. They'll play 4 at the back. I would have thought Lewis and.
But then does Fraser not get? Just going by that, Fraser's not getting in.
I suppose they've got competition in there. I don't quite know the pecking order enough, but I think what stood out for me was I went to the Wolves game last season, at a time when Newcastle weren't really very fancied, and I was really impressed with the way they played. The Longstaff brothers played really well, and one of them scored, I think, and that just stuck in my mind, that actually that if Newcastle, if one of those has got their shirt in the Newcastle team, they might be a low risk kind of 5 million first serve option, but it's all the same kind of thing really. I like I like the Newcastle options, but probably going on about them a bit too much now. You want to,
Yeah. Looking through all of the drafts that we've got here, there is definitely a template forming. There's Aubameyang, it's Werner, it's a Newcastle asset, it's a United player on the bench, it's a Liverpool defender, it's a 4.5, maybe a 5 mil goalkeeper, a lot of 4.5 defenders. The one I've got up, which is Sean in the chat, it's got triple Liverpool defence at the moment. Now, I was a big advocate for double Liverpool defence at the start of the season, and I really liked the idea of having Trent and Robbo, and I said to myself, they are the best value players. I really like them. For some reason I've talked myself out of it, and I can't seem to get them back in my team now. But I feel like triple is a step too far.
I mean, I agree. I suppose the thing with Trent and Robbo is that they went up in price, didn't they? So it became difficult to have that perfect template in your mind that you can have Trent and Robbo and then create the perfect team, because it's not really quite possible. I mean, the triple's just not for me really. It's not how I play the game, because I just think that it boxes you into you lose a lot of flexibility and of course it means you can't get a midfielder in. So I say good luck to anybody who wants to go down that road. But I think you're far better off either having Trent and Robbo, and then not having a midfielder, or having one midfielder and one Liverpool defender. And I think one of my rules really is don't triple up on a team too early, because you have to then to kind of take a backward step really, unless like Liverpool last season they went on a run of 15, and you have to. The back-to-back winning, you end up needing to make a change kind of at some point, I'd say. And Liverpool have got Chelsea and Arsenal back-to-back as well.
Yeah, it's not ideal. Someone here's got Salah and Mane, which is an interesting placeholder if you're looking to get someone like De Bruyne or Bruno in your team. Again, I personally think that the likes that Aubameyang will outscore both of them this season, and I like Aubameyang as more of an option than I like either of them. Something that's a stat that I've started to pay more attention to is this goal involvement percentage. So when they're on the pitch, what percentage of the team's goals that they scored in? And Aubameyang's is 52%. So Arsenal scored 2 goals, he's involved in one of them. For Salah and Mane, it's sort of 33%, so it's 1 in 3. So yes, Liverpool may score slightly more goals, but they've got to score 3 goals. So in this opening game week, it's a big thing that's impacted my captain. If I expect both teams, Liverpool need to score 3 goals effectively for me to get an attack in return from Salah, whereas Aubameyang needs to score 2 against that Fulham side. Just makes me much more confident in that Aubameyang captaincy than it would be on Salah.
Well, I think. Well, why would he need to score 3? Have I just missed the point of the goal?
Sorry. Yeah. So the goal involvement is while they're on the pitch, what percentage of goals they're involved in that their team scores. So
I see. Right. Yeah. So Salah's goal, the percentage of the goals would be shared around. Yeah, but I think that Aubameyang from midfield is certainly rivals Salah now, doesn't he? By with his clean sheets as well. But Liverpool do score more goals as well. Will score more goals than Arsenal, so that does balance out the kind of 3 and 2 argument. The argument. I'm not too familiar with that with the goals stats as you can see, but I do think that Mane and Salah is a little bit greedy. I'd say I think it's much better off bringing in Aubameyang to kind of balance your side alongside one of them.
Yeah, we'll just have a look at a couple more before we head off. We've been live sort of 40 minutes or so. A talking point that we'll go to. We've got a fairly template team up here, but one pick is Vinagre on here. What are your as a Wolves fan? If we get your sort of opinion on Wolves and things like that, and the defence specifically, is Traore going to be playing at right wing back?
Traore looks like he'll be playing at right wing back at the moment. We haven't signed anybody. He started last season there before he moved further forwards. I can't imagine Nuno thinks it's a long-term option because it didn't go that well. He'll be starting at right wing back. I'm fairly sure of that. Certainly game week 1.
Yeah. No love for Oscar Burr 4.0.
Well, Harry.
No, I'm hoping I'm hoping one person is going to tell me it's a good idea, so that I have someone to blame when it goes wrong. But it doesn't seem to be likely. Doesn't seem to be a good option at all, does he?
Well, I think if you're just looking to pick two 4.0 players and write him off for the season, and then to find some money, then I'll pick. But I wouldn't advise it, to be honest.
Yeah, it doesn't look like an option. The draft that we've got up at the moment has Saiss in at the moment. This new guy that you've signed from Lyon, is he likely to be coming in at wing back over Vinagre or as a sort of centre back? So does Saiss need to worry about that?
I think at the moment Vinagre looks like he might be on the way out for a move for the Porto left wing back.
Telles,
and I think if Telles comes in, then I would have thought Markle will be strong competition for Saiss's position. Yeah. I would have thought on paper he sounds like an upgrade for Saiss's position. Saiss started getting continued to get a lot of bookings towards the end of the season, and I thought Nuno looked like he was getting a little bit frustrated a couple of times with him against Seville in the Cup. He got booked, I think, and then Arsenal and a couple of silly bookings. And I just think, well, it would make sense if Telles plays left wing back, and then Markle plays instead of Saiss. That would seem to be a move that I think Wolves fans would think was an upgrade.
Interesting. I still like your defence a lot. It's a bit like the Sheffield United one. Now you've had a couple of good seasons defending, that the prices have gone up to 5 million, which makes it just that slightly bit more to justify owning them. But in the last 8 game weeks or something, you conceded 20 shots on target in all the 8 games combined, and the second lowest was City with 25, and they were great defensively. They kept loads of clean sheets. So there's definitely still value to be had in a Wolves defender at 5 million, especially with your fixtures early on. Apart from game week 2 where you've got City, your fixtures are really good to start the season.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we'll have another solid season in defence, but I think given that Wolves are now look like a top 7 team and the uncertainty about some of the players, Saiss, Vinagre, I think Patricio, Wolves are starting to warrant maybe spending a little bit more just to be sure that you don't have to make another change. That's why on the thread I was talking about big Bolly earlier and Patricio. I think Wolves are now in the a good enough team to say, well, we're not looking to kind of grab someone who might I would be tempted by Bolly, which is why I've got him in my team at the moment. But again, Saiss is not a bad pick, but I don't think anyone knows for sure at the moment where Markle's going to fit in. So that's a big question mark.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Definitely. Is Bolly 5 million as well, or is he 5.5?
No, he's 5.5. But I think that's an extra. The worth. I think what I'm saying is I think that's worth the extra investment.
But Cody is also 5. So presumably, if someone was going to be dropped from that defence, it would be Saiss. So do you not fancy Cody at 5 over Bolly at 5.5?
I've thought about Cody plenty of times, just getting him in, playing the Egan role, just as a kind of in 5. But he doesn't ever go past the halfway line, Cody. So you're not going to get anything. You're not going to get any attacking returns at all. But then he did get quite a few. He did get more points than you think last season, Cody, for 5 million. So I would be tempted to take Cody at the moment. Cody ahead of Saiss, but personally, I would prefer. My preference would be to go to just not have to worry about it and go with Bolly. Yeah,
I think that's probably a good way to go. Or wait and see what happens with any of these new signings and how they get priced up. Just while you were talking, I went and made a little transfer in my team. So I've taken Dele Alli out and put James Maddison in, as we've spoken. And what that's allowed me to do is upgrade my 4 mil defender up to a 4.5, which gives me a fairly strong looking bench while having a starting lineup, which I think is just as strong as having Ali in. So something good has come out of this. We've had a look through a lot of drafts. If you guys haven't had yours looked at, send it to me again on Twitter in the sort of DMs, and I will reply to them. But I think that's sort of all we've got time to do. So if you guys haven't, I will just put the mini league stuff back up on the screen for you all briefly there. If you aren't in this league, make sure and you go and join it. The prizes are all up on there. As I've said, it's just for you guys on YouTube, not for anyone else. And every week we'll be looking at who the highest, who the top of the league is, who's done really well, and that will be starting this time next week. Strange to think that in a week's time we'll be reviewing how our mini leagues are looking already. It seems to have come round very, very quickly. Thank you for filling in. I've really enjoyed the chat, especially getting an insight onto the Wolf stuff, especially. If you guys don't follow FPL Express already over on Twitter, make sure you do so. Some really good Wolf stuff over on there already. So yeah, if you don't follow him, go make sure you do. But thank you for coming on.
Cheers, Harry. Nice to meet you and speak. And yep, let's look forward to the start of the season. Good
Definitely.
luck.
Thanks, guys. And if you could leave a subscribe and leave a like on the video, that would be really appreciated. And I will see you all next week. Thanks, guys.